Hello everybody and welcome to Brony FanFics. Today the second part of chapter 19. When we left off, I believe they found a old Gryphon and Twilight has just asked what happened to the Gryphons. Rainbow Dash was disapproving of this question for the thought of wasting time. And but Rainbow Dash accepts that it's a valid question, I don't know. But anyway, let's carry on. Keep an eye on the clock there, Miss Dash. He pointed, gesturing at a clock displayed beside him that read roughly 20 minutes after noon. The wonders of magic allow one to do a great many things. Allow me to show you. From a compartment on his chest, the great Gryphon pulled what looked like a thin metal rod, coloured a bright silver and covered with tiny markings that glowed a dim purple. "What in the hay is that?" Applejack asked as she looked at the object. "It looks very familiar," Twilight hummed, tapping a hoof to her chin. "I just know I've seen it somewhere before." "A magic wand, of course," Rarity laughed. "Surely you recognise the stage magician's weapon of choice, as 'twere." Wand! Like in the murals," Twilight said eagerly. "Miss Rarity is correct," Gilderoy beamed. "Our kind lacked the horns needed to channel the kinds of magic that unicorns are capable of, as we did so wish to enjoy the pleasure of telekinesis. Wands like this gather magic in the air and channel it into spells, much like your horns do, and are made of a very powerful conducting metal that we call arcanium. With it, I can absorb even the abundant powerful magic that the chamber outside generates," he declared with a boastful sweetness of the wand, which sparkled and glowed as it moved. "And do something like this." He aimed the wand straight into the air, and from out of the tip shot a liquid-like substance that instantly coated everything around them. It wasn't until every pony opened their eyes that they realised it wasn't a liquid substance at all, but merely the way the magic of the spell washed away one reality and brought them into another. They now found themselves in a location unlike the one they'd previously been in. Gilderoy was gone, but the six of them stood in a grand chamber lavishly decorated with reds and purples and blues and golds, so much so that it wasn't until moments later that they recognised that the room was familiar to them. It appeared to be the entryway they'd spent the morning in, only now appearing as if it were brand new, but also no longer abandoned. Gryphons of all kinds walked and hovered and flew about the chamber, waiting, some chatting with one another in private, others engaged in open discussion with larger groups. Most of the Gryphons were wearing robes similar to Gilderoy's, barring a few of them that stood proud and tall in armour at the sides of some of the entryway passages. "Whoa, what's going on?" Rainbow asked as she looked around. "Did I hit my head or something?" "Don't worry, Rainbow. We all see it too." "This room is simply gorgeous," Rarity cooed as she stepped closer to some of the decorative banners. "The colours are so bright, and they stand out so well in this fabric. I wonder what—" She reached out to touch the banner in hopes of feeling the material, but her hoof simply passed through it as if it weren't there at all. "Where in the hay did Mr. Gilderoy get to?" "Do not fret, my dear Applejack. I am here, yet I am not. Everywhere and nowhere, all at the same time." Gilderoy's voice spoke, though he was nowhere to be seen. I have long since lost the desire to relive the past of my people, having seen all I truly need to wish to see, and this was a very, very long time ago, many decades before the fall. Our kind were prosperous then, but we stood ever watchful, for even in this supposed time of peace, there were signs of darkness on the horizon. The scene changed, and the six found themselves on top of a hill in the middle of a field of dirty browns and greys. It was clearly what the wasteland had once been, and even this long ago, however long that happened to be. It appeared mostly the same, if not perhaps a little brighter. Off in the distance they could see what looked like a settlement, which made them all a little curious. They didn't remember seeing any sort of settlements while they were travelling, and surely TikTok would have mentioned something like that to use as a rest stop for some place to gather supplies. There was no great coating of magical power in the sky either, no field generated by the beacon. They could see the moon and the stars clearly above, as they could see them back at home. And being able to see it from a stationary position this time let them see that this world's sky was indeed quite different. The constellations were all strange and foreign to them, with a great many stars that flickered brighter than the rest, and certainly brighter than any nighttime stars they'd ever seen before. Even the moon was different, a rusty red in colour with few if any blemishes upon its face, and either a great deal closer or a great deal larger than their own. Below the hill, marching across the desolate desert towards the settlement, was an army of ponies, all of different races, clad in fierce and black armour and wielding terrible weapons, with blades and spikes that were still stained red. Standing beside them on this hill was a very large earth pony, black in coat with extremely short brown mane and tail, and an eye of furious red. The other was closed shut, a great gash of a scar across it that looked like it hadn't healed too well at all. He wore an intimidating suit of black armour covered in stripes, covered in spikes and metal that covered him from head to hoof, and then some, with a very large axe strapped to his back. The gruesome smile that suddenly spread across his face was enough to make the ponies all warily step back, as if worried he would suddenly lash out at them. To the north of Aeropolis was the city of Pandemonium, though nowadays your kind call it Old Oh wait, is this Gilderoy? To the north of Aeropolis was the city of Pandemonium, though nowadays your kind call it Old Pandemonium. It was less a city than it was a fortress, a temple of sorts to the goddess of destruction and disparity, Nihila. Yes, I remember reading about her in the murals, Twilight hummed. She and the other alicorn, Harmonia? So they truly were worshipped as goddesses? Aye, they were, Gilderoy answered. Harmonia treated her subjects as a mother dotes upon her children, giving them love and compassion and providing them with a paradise realm where they need not fear hunger or poverty or war. Nihila, however, treated her subjects as little more than tools, a means to an end. While Harmonia prospered in this presence of love and peace and harmony, Nihila thrived on hatred and war and chaos. And so she inspired her most loyal subjects to bring destruction across the northern wastelands, in order to increase her power. She is a most fearsome creature with magic powerful enough to tear apart reality if she so desired. But so long as the forces of light oppose her, her dark magics can never reach that potential. Light and dark magics? Twilight asked with interest. Two of the fundamental forces of the universe, Gilderoy explained. Their delicate balance is all that keeps the foundation of a world in check against certain destruction from the powers of the void beyond. Aha! Twilight blurted happily. I knew it! I told you guys it wasn't law and chaos. She pointed at her friends. Oh, I can't wait to see TikTok's face when she hears this. That'll show that arrogant... Law and chaos magics. Ah, your friends. This TikTok? She must be a chronomancer. Twice's eyes widened. You know about chronomancers? That's one way of putting it. Gilderoy's voice laughed. To be honest, I knew the chronomancer of my time personally. A nice young man, a Pegasus if my memory serves, with a positive outlook on life in general despite witnessing the horrors of our own kind could reap upon one another. Oh, how easy their job was in the world before all this horrible business happened. Void portals were more common then, certainly, but travelling between them was significantly easier. Since those days, I would not be surprised if the last 2 or 3 chronomancers would be rather abrupt when it came to handling their duties. Yeah, we know. Twilight rolled her eyes. If by abrupt you mean fathead, then yeah, we certainly know what you're talking about, Rainbow agreed. Your friend must be a recent addition to their ranks. I remember there being a visitor to the ruins of Aeropolis some years back. Less than a decade, perhaps? An old stallion, an earth pony. He wasn't in the best of condition, but I recognized the signs of him being a chronomancer. Time-related cutie mark, typical uniform. He didn't possess the stopwatch I am so used to seeing them carry, though, which I found odd. Perhaps the stallion was your TikTok's predecessor? But I digress. Where was I? Chronomancers in the nature of light and dark magic, I believe, Rarity reminded. Ah yes, the chronomancers have always been at odds with our kind due to our studies of magic, seeing as how we have a widely differing matter of opinion on how magic works than they do. Never coming close to blows, of course, but there were often bitter words shared between us. They claim we misunderstand the true nature of things, that their little devices can answer anything, but we have seen the truth beyond what their little trinkets can tell them, if only they would take the time to analyze it. Your friend isn't necessarily wrong. Her terminology is just a little misconstructed. Law and light are natural allies, as are dark and chaos. But that does not mean they are always in agreement. There are such things as chaotic light forces, just as there are orderly dark ones. They are not truly interchangeable, but close enough to it that I can see why the chronomancers insist on the terminology they've been taught since the beginning of time. And there I go again, rambling on some tangent. I was speaking of the darkness Nihila wielded, wasn't I? Yeah, she was a most fearsome creature who wanted nothing more than to bring the entire world to its knees, and she commanded a grand force of fanatical followers that served at every whim as delegated to them by their leader, the goddess's personal steward, or warden, as the title is officially called. His name was Blood Beryl, and he was a monster in the plainest terms. I often tend to skip past the portion of these memories that involve him, and I dare say you'd thank me for the gesture. I doubt you have the stomach for it. The scene transitioned back to the Gryphon's form before, though the scene must have been from years after the previous ones. The Gryphon capital still looked very much the same, and it was just as populated, but the Gryphons now wandered about seemed a little less cheery. Their whispers spoke of danger, of prophecy, and of war. More guards are stationed about than normal as well, their weapons and armour gleaming as if freshly polished. Our kind were unofficially at war with him and his followers, though we knew little of the ways of war at the time. But we had little to fear of him beyond some minor concerns. We directed a barrier around the city that only allowed those who were attuned to energies and magic similar to our own to enter. In other words, only creatures empowered by light magics could enter, while those who relied on darkness could not. Of course, that is the way the shield actually worked. Many of my kind believed it only allowed in those who were pure of heart and diverted evil. A foolish notion. Nothing could get through it apart from those who would be our allies and friends, but we feared that if left to our own devices, one day Nihila might grow tired of simply conquering the rest of the continent and come after us. And if she so desired, she could easily destroy such a shield. It is her nature, but then he arrived. The Gryphons in the vision all suddenly turned as a new visitor strode through the great entryway with impressive grandeur, flanked at his sides by a great many ponies of all the races. All of them wearing gold and silver armours and glimmered and gleamed in the light of the official sun high above. The pony leading the procession was a unicorn, tall and broad-figured with an impossibly pristine silver coat, with dazzling radiance and purity. His bright golden impeccable star mane was shone with just as much intensity. His eyes were a bright sea blue, though his vision was clearly not perfect, as he wore a monocle over one. He wore an immaculate dress uniform that covered him from head to hoof, the shiny white silk almost radiant in the bright light of the chamber, the royal purple trim glistening even more so. Rarity's jaw couldn't have dropped lower if it tried. By Celestia! Who is that? That is the most gorgeous unicorn I have ever seen. Oh, good heavens, that specimen makes Prince Bluebird look absolutely pale in comparison, even if that oaf did have better manners. Who is he? Rarity bounded over to the stallion and circled around him gingerly, eyeing him up and down like he was some sort of model. Oh, he's perfect! Whoa there, Rarity, calm down, Applejack chuckled. This is a vision of the past, right? Like 1,000,000 years ago? A millennium, Twilight corrected. Applejack raised an eyebrow. That's what I said, 1,000,000. Twilight held her hoof to her face in disappointment. Just keep your dress on there, Sugar Cube. Old pretty boy there is already long gone, I reckon. No sense in getting all hot and bothered about him. Oh, right, yes, of course. Rarity pouted. Well, at least a lady can look for a little while. Gawking doesn't sound very ladylike at all, Rarity, Rainbow snickered. I'm not gawking, I'm observing. A lady can simply look at the stallion she finds attractive without being accused of leering at him, can she not? That uniform of his is simply marvellous, no, divine, and such poise, such grace. Take note, this is a stallion, ladies. Now y'all sound like you're trying to sell him, Applejack said flatly. No sale, Rarity, he ain't my type. He's a little intimidating, Fluttershy squeaked. Rarity ignored them and continued. Oh my, if only we had the stallions like this back at home. You can bet I'd be much more aggressive on the romantic scene if I thought I might land a catch such as this. She reached out to touch him and made an exaggerated pout as her hoof slid through right through him as though he was made of air. Oh, how terribly disappointing. But yeah, who is he? Rainbow asked the formless Gilderoy. You act like he's important. Gilderoy's reply was quick and came with a hint of warning. He was important, my dear, very important. His actions all those years ago set forth a chain of events that had made this world the way it is today. While many may not agree with him, I do admit that his methods were brilliant and his results proven. And though it pains me to say it, he actually did do this world a lot of good in the end. The ends justify the means, as he told us at every single turn in his crusade. It was only too late that we realized that we'd been used, tricked into helping him accomplish his goals, and then cast aside as soon as he had no more use for us. But every time I review this event, well, I'll admit that silver tongue of his does make quite a speech. The scene followed the unicorn as he was taken with his progression to the chambers of the Gryphon's elder council, whom he stood before with such proud, cocksure stance that he seemed to think himself not just some mere guest or foreign ambassador, but a true equal. The old Gryphons of the council all eyed him with some degree of contempt, unsure of what to make of this pony, coming before them and strutting himself with such airs. Particularly the one seated just right of the centre with pale blue eyes, but the unicorn spoke loudly and confidently to them, completely unfazed by the repugnance their eyes held before them and his kind, with a voice that dripped with imposing vigour. Gryphons of the Elder Council, he said as he ran his eyes across the bench of 9, it would seem the fates have smiled upon you. Oh wait, is this the pony or... I think it's the pony actually. Which is Silvertongue, obviously, so I need to... Gryphons of the Elder Council, he said as he ran his eyes across the bench of the 9. It would seem the fates have smiled upon you, that I have arrived before tragedy could befall your kind. I am most pleased that you are all unharmed, safely guarded within this grand protective barrier of yours. If only the rest of us could safely hide away and ignore the plight of our fellow creatures. Your sarcasm is not appreciated here, unicorn. The Gryphon just right of centre sneered. His voice was almost instantly familiar, though in vision it sounded significantly younger and rang clear. Gilderoy's younger self did not take his eyes off the unicorn for a moment. Sorry, I just lost my way for a second. President Gilderoy took his moment to interrupt. President Gilderoy took his moment to interrupt. I apologise if my younger self has caused any offence to any pony, he apologised. In those times we Gryphons viewed ourselves as quite superior to your own kind. How wrong I turned out to be in the end. You ponies are indeed something far beyond anything I could ever have imagined. It is quite all right, Mr. Gilderoy, Rarity said from near the unicorn stallion. We all learn from our mistakes. Gilderoy unpaused the memory. The unicorn smirked and continued his grandiose speech. My apologies, Elder Gilderoy. I mean no insult, of course. You know our names? Asked the Gryphon to Gilderoy's left. I find it prudent to learn about those I intend to speak to on important matters as a sign of respect. Elder Garrick. Tell me though, Counsel, from within these glorious shields of yours, do you not see how the forces of Blood Beryl taint your lands, slaughter innocents and destroy settlements across the desert, befoul everything that is good in this world? We do see this, answered the Gryphon on the far left in a solemn understanding. But we do not have the means with which to put a stop to it, continued a Gryphon in the right centre. Our kind do not make war upon others. It is not our way, and never has been. The means? Why, you sell yourselves short, my fine feathered friends. I have seen the incredible capabilities of your techno-magic, the wonders it can create, and even the tiniest amounts of magical energies. Were you to apply it properly, why, you would be the most powerful kingdom indeed. You already use this to erect this mighty barrier of yours to stem the tide of darkness, as it surely surges against you. It is for this purpose that I have come to request your aid in my crusade against the coming disaster, for in my heart I believe I alone cannot hope to succeed. I am sure you all can sense what is happening to our world, the imbalance. The Gryphons looked at one another with concern, unsure how to answer. A few moments of deliberation later, a Gryphon in the middle left spoke. You spoke of the imbalance between light and dark? Naturally, the unicorn responded with a small nod. Milady Harmonia senses it as well. It drives her to restless days and nights, unsure what to make of it and unsure how to solve this dilemma. She is hesitant to act, to strike out against evil, as paying blood unto blood is not in her character, but even she would agree that something must be done. The forces of darkness approach from the north. They sweep across the deserts of the wastelands, and the mountains of Red Blade are now even now they approach the coasts of the northern lands. They blacken all in their path, leaving ruin and death in their wake like a plague, a swarm of locusts hell-bent on devouring all that they see. Just trying to see who's saying this, but it doesn't say, so I'm going to assume it's Silvertongue. In a few decades they will have conquered all of the northern lands, save for your own. And when they have nothing left to freely destroy, they will turn upon you with the full force of Nihila behind them. They will not be deterred by your barrier, and they will not be held back by your meager soldiers. And they will not be stopped until every last one of you is dead. You will be destroyed, and the darkness will have won. And then, with the north under their hooves and nothing more to destroy, they will have no choice but to move south if they would sate their goddess's unquenchable thirst for chaos and ruin. They will destroy the peaceful lands of Utopia, and they will not be met with nearly as much resistance as even your kind can muster. My brethren to the south lack the fortitude to take up arms. They lack your vast knowledge of magical arts. They lack the phenomenal techno-magic. It will be a massacre. Harmonia will be unable to stop it, and when the darkness has engulfed even those lands, this world will be no more. Chaos and death will reign. The Gryphons all remained silent in thought for several moments, before finally one of them spoke. We have seen these visions ourselves, the fire-eyed Gryphon stated, but only our own kind knows this. We have not shared these visions with your kind in the least. How is it that you know these things? The nature of light and darkness, asked the one just left of the centre. This manner of magic is not intuitive to your kind. The unicorn brandished an emblem, emblazoned with a glorious silver shield, with a bright purple sun at the centre. That made all the griffins present react in a complete and utter surprise. I am the warden of the goddess of balance, Harmonia. And it is through her blessings upon me that I know of a great many things that many of my kind do not. At least, not so intimately. She shared her own visions with me as one would share a secret, and it is through her visions that I have seen the truth of things. I saw the future of this world, if nothing was done. I saw the deliverance of the will of Nihila, who only hopes to conquer and bring ponies and griffins and zebras alike beneath her hooves. I have seen the war she would bring upon us all, and the widespread famine and certain death that would follow. I cannot allow that to happen, against Harmonia's wishes. I have led this crusade and landed on your southern shores in hopes of stopping this plague of destruction before it spreads. I have fought back the forces of darkness as best as I can with the humble few that are loyal and devoted to Harmonia's vision, even if she lacks the resolve to order it herself. The Warden of Harmonia, the Gryphon in the centre, spoke. You would ignore the wishes of the goddess of balance in order to serve her true meaning? I'm surprised she has not yet stripped you of your rank. Milady Harmonia trusts me, the unicorn said with a certain smugness. She knows that in all of this, I have made the correct decision. The one that will save the world, even if she cannot support me directly. But I still maintain her blessings in might and wisdom are proof of that fact. Even if she doubts my intentions, they are pure, and I would gladly have laid aside my rank if asked. If only that I may be allowed to continue the task I have set before me. The ends justify the means, my friends. Barbarians do not respond to diplomacy. They only respond to war, and I will bring it to them. I mean to bring an end to this, here and now. So you say, the far-left Gryphon hummed. What would you ask of us? My forces are few, and dwindle by the day as the fighting continues. My supplies are fewer still, and I have no safe haven here in the north from which to acquire more. I cannot ask for support from Utopia, as the leaders support Harmonia's isolationist ideal. I do not ask that you or any Gryphon actively involve themselves in a war that is mine and mine alone. I merely ask, as humbly as I can, that you aid me indirectly, supply my soldiers with some of your famous techno-magic, that we may find a use for it against our foes. With your help, Elder, we will drive back the darkness, and we will save this world. The Gryphons conferred amongst themselves once again. For a great deal of time, the Warden of Harmonia watched with an intense scrutiny as the elders bickered back and forth, not at all bothered by the occasional glares that Elder Gildrow was shooting in his direction. At last the Centre Gryphon nodded once more and stood tall, speaking loudly and clearly. The truth of impending disaster is a hard one to swallow for most. Our kind believe in the visions of the Elder Council wholeheartedly. They have seen the same visions that no doubt you have, Warden. And they know that if we do not act, our world may yet and if we do not act, the world may yet falter and die. But we will lack the resolve to take up arms ourselves, just as most of your kind in the south do. We have not actively involved ourselves in conflict for nearly 2,000 years. We are a peaceful people, a wise people. The Warden appeared disappointed at first, but brightened when the Elder continued. But, knowing that we have an ally in the Warden of Harmonia, will take a heavy burden off our hearts and may yet ease our minds. Very well, Warden. You have our blessings. We will aid you in your crusade. I thank you, Elder Council. The Warden bowed. The scene transitioned to the chambers again, several years after. This was obvious enough due to the changes in decor, and that 3 of the 9 elders were faces that hadn't been there before. Replacements to take seats that had been left as the previous elders passed on. The one of Harmonia was alone this time. His uniform as perfectly clean as ever, and he looked ever so pleased with himself, such that it was clear that what events had transpired. Gilderoy still remained at his seat just right of the centre, his pale blue eyes now filled with more curiosity than anything else. The Gryphon had been getting on in the years, making him much more familiar looking than to the mayors watching what were obviously now his memories. Present Gilderoy's voice spoke. The Warden's war against Blood Beryl was a success, the likes of which we'd never dreamed. He was a brilliant tactical mastermind, and an exceedingly powerful mage in his own right, though much of that lends itself to Harmonia's blessings upon him that even after years of bloodshed, he still manages to keep hold of. Records of some of us elders managed to come by indicated that he'd apparently always been brilliant and ambitious. I see now where we made our folly in trusting him, but it was not my place to lay aside all that our society believed him. After all, if he was able to enter our lands, his magic surely must be of the light. And at the time, many of our kind believed the light and good were synonymous. To this day, I must wonder at precisely what point he changed. The Warden spoke clear, with an elation in his voice that carried great pride. Council! It has been many years since I saw you last, and it warms my heart to see familiar faces. I deliver my respects, of course, to Elva Garrick, Gautier, and Gideon. Rainbow interrupted the vision a moment. That's 8 now, Twilight. Come on, this has to be more than a coincidence. I'm still not convinced, Twilight argued. President Gilderoy's voice became curious. Convinced of what, my dear? What are you two going on about? Rainbow started. I'm just telling Twilight that that you Griffins all have the names that start with the letter G. I noticed the pattern is all, and I'm telling her it's a hasty generalization, Twilight interrupted. Perhaps you can set us straight? President Gilderoy laughed. Miss Dash is most intuitive. Our kind does in fact utilize a very common naming scheme, in the art of liberamancy. The 3 letters with the greatest potential for magical dominance are G and S and T. Creatures with names that start with those letters are more often predisposed to great feats of magic, at least in theory. Rainbow stood proud. Ha! Told you to I. Hey, wait a second. S and T work too? Hey, Twilight, your name starts with T, yes. Twilight rolled her eyes. Liberamancy is a sketchy school of magic, filled with a lot of superstitious nonsense. Just because both my first name and last name start with T and S does not make me predisposed to be predisposed to greater magical feats. Well, the Starlight Shadow Creep follows that same rule. Maybe there's something to it. Can we just get back to the vision, Mr. Gilderoy? Twilight huffed. Certainly, my dear. President Gilderoy chuckled. The vision went on unperturbed, but I come not just to reflect on lives lost to the cruelty of time. I come before you today to announce a great victory. The Blood Beryl has been defeated, and his grand fortress city of Pandemonium has been razed to the ground, where it will no longer be a blemish upon the world. The darkness will threaten us no more. The Gryphon elders all nodded in acknowledgement. The right one spoke. We have seen visions of your victory. We admit that when we first lent you our aid, we were skeptical as to your ultimate success. Understand that we even still knew it. It was better to try than to ignore, spoke a Gryphon at the middle left. And that even had you failed, you'd have displayed the inevitable by a great many decades. Enough time, perhaps, for others of our kind, or even our own, to see that we needed to stand and fight. A martyr you would be, but it would seem that concern was unnecessary. "Do not take offence, Warden," spoke a Gryphon to the previous one's right. "We merely mean that our hopes upon you were difficult to judge. Your appearance was sudden, and we had not predicted aid from the outside world could come to us. Even now, the fog of time grows murkier and murkier. We fear that before long we will be unable to delve into Farsight at all." "No offence taken, Counsel. I would not expect any less of the wisest of your kind," the unicorn bowed. "However, not all that I came to deliver is pleasant to hear. I bear grave news indeed. I'm sure you sense it as well?" The central Gryphon nodded solemnly. "Yes, we sense it. It gives us all a sense of regret. The powers of darkness have waned too greatly. It would seem that your success was beyond even your own expectations." "Perhaps," the unicorn said with a cautious, smug smile. "But despite the dire future we have all beheld, I may have devised a solution that I hope meets your approval for it. For it depends greatly upon it. We must somehow prevent the darkness from faltering, lest the imbalance spreads across our world in the wrong direction. Too much light is as great a threat as the opposite, and without any darkness to flow from the north we will soon be unable to counter it. We must act quickly." "You have a plan in mind, Warden?" the far-left Gryphon asked. "I do. If I may be bold enough to present it, as I said, it rests heavily on your approval, Counsel, and I have already asked much of you. I have done no small amount of research into the workings of the capabilities of your techno-magic marvels, and I have learned a great deal what matters of devices are possible under your guidance. My research led me to a very specific, particularly fascinating device in your possession, the beacon." The council muttered amongst themselves a moment, until the middle right spoke. "The beacon is not a device to be treated lightly. Our greatest scholars have only recently progressed through the final stages of the project, and even they are unsure of its full potential. What do you intend to do with it?" "The idea is elementary, and, if I may say so, quite ingenious. I intend to construct a pair of them, one each in Utopia and another in the remains of Pandemonium, where the greatest concentrations of light and dark magics in the world reside. The beacons, fueled by this power, will generate the fields of the same magic, supplying the world with all the light and dark magics it needs to survive, in an absolutely perfect balance. Regardless of the individual actions of single creatures or even vast quantities of them. Imagine it. With the two beacons in effect, the world would remain safely balanced between the two, even if the entire planet's population had hearts that were devoted to a single force. It's flawless, to be perfectly blunt." "You speak with little skepticism. You sincerely believe this will work?" spoke the far-right Gryphon with a great deal of skepticism of his own. "I know it will work." The warden spoke with forceful confidence. "I ask your aid once more to save our world, Council. We must construct these beacons to keep the balance in check forevermore. There will never again be worry of war or strife, because even those will not skew the balance even the tiniest fraction of Arcanum. The amount of power required to actually affect it by even the smallest amount would have to be an incredibly massive magnitude, rivaling perhaps the powers of Harmonia and Nihila themselves." The council conferred amongst one another again, and this time the warden could see that Gilderoy was no longer giving him looks of disdain or distrust, but eyeing him with a sincere curiosity. The Centaur Gryphon stood tall and spoke, his words carrying a great deal of weight to them. "Your words are as wise as they have always been, Warden. Without light to prevail against darkness, the world would be covered in shadow, but without darkness to threaten the light, we all may be blinded in our complacence. If there is a way to prevent that, then it would be our duty to ensure that this comes to pass. to protect this world that we call our home, from not only the greatest of evils, but even from themselves. You have our blessings, Warden of Harmonia. May you use them well. I will not disappoint you, Council. The Warden bowed. We were fools. Blinded by the prospect of the greatest undertaking of our techno-magic marvels would ever face. Present Gilderoy sighed as the scene transitioned again. They all found themselves suddenly standing on a hill just a few miles from Goldridge Pass mountains, overlooking a field of red stuff. The ponies couldn't tell what the stuff was, nor the piles of black that were scattered about. They certainly all looked unnatural. The trees were black and looked quite dead. Only maybe not so they couldn't tell. Either way, the Warden of Harmonia stood beside them on that hill, and looked very much the same as he had in the last two visions, with only his uniform strangely being different. Black had replaced white, red replaced purple, and leather had replaced silk, making him look every bit as dark and intimidating as Blood Beryl had been. In the sky above, the instantly recognizable magical aura of the beacon shone as bright as they remembered it in reality, and in the distance, they could just make out the massive wall that surrounded New Pandemonium City. Albeit here it was under construction. The Warden looked out onto the sea of red with a bright red glow from his horn. He fired a single spell, a massive purple barrier around the region that had not been visible before began to sputter and die like a flickering flame. The red stuff, which could only be described as a horrible ooze, began to seep along fertile ground, devouring it like a hungry, ravenous beast and tainting it all the way as it went. The Warden fired another spell at a grand structure that sat embedded in the side of the mountains in the distance. The ooze abruptly changed paths, now moving towards the structure with a speed that was astounding. His horn glowed again, and he was suddenly gone, teleporting away in an instant as the red ooze slid along the hill beneath them. The Warden of Harmonia betrayed us, Gilderoy said simply. One day he delivered a letter to the council, wishing us the best of luck in our future endeavours, and graciously thanking us for our contributions to the future of Equestria, but regretting that he could not visit us himself. That day he committed genocide upon our kind, and never looked back. Do you recognize his uniform? The colours? They are those that the healer prefers. You saw similar colours upon her former warden, Blood Beryl, and the army that he commanded. He'd sworn himself to her, becoming the new warden and forsaking his role that of Harmonia's warden. With Nihil's dark magics at his disposal, the warden disabled our barrier over the Red Death, and unleashed it upon us, knowing that our city's barriers only prevented magic and creatures from entering, but could not prevent the earth itself from moving against us. The tainted earth spread by the Red Death creeped under our barrier, and set itself upon us like a plague. Once this work was complete, he summoned it back from under our land so that it left everything dead and forgotten, but perfectly safe to travel through. Days later, some pony else came into our realm, though I know not of who they were, and looted our grand library, hence why I cannot help you with a map. You see, I suspect they unknowingly had been commissioned by Nihil's new warden for the job, though I am unsure why. How terrible, Twilight frowned. What kind of complete monster was this warden? Really? What a round trick, too, Applejack spat. Even if he was going to try and take y'all out, the least he could is do it with some honor. Fight y'all face to face like. Reggie frowned. Oh my. Why is it that all the good ones are either already taken or pure evil, and they just can't catch a break? Rainbow shrugged. That guy has bad news. That guy was bad news. That's what he was. Glad we ain't got to deal with anything like that, right? He doesn't have all those fancy gizmos to make him live forever too, does he? No, thankfully he does not. But even if he did, I doubt he would be much threat anymore, Gilderoy said with discontent as the vision slowly melted away and brought them all back to reality. One thing always bothered me, even all these years. If he was now Nihil's warden, then his purpose would be to cause disparity, death and destruction. Suddenly genocide would placate her. For so many decades, but lately, and by that I mean several hundred years, I haven't seen anything on the sort of grand scale she desires. I'm sure that lacking in which he performed those duties would probably attracted her ire, and I have my doubts that he remained alive for long. While it saddens me that he became what he was in the end, I will admit that his dedication to harmonious purpose was commendable. The ends justified the means, I suppose. Gryphon kind was eradicated. The prized warden of Harmonia lost to darkness, but the world was now in perfect harmony. And with what little observation I am able to make of the surface, I can sense that the beacons are still running as strong as ever. The world remains balanced between dark and light. Only very recently have I seen a noticeable change in the balance, but it strangely reversed itself only a day or so later, and then recently began to become gravely imbalanced again. A most curious observation, and a foreboding one as well. If the balance continues as is, I have no doubt that the past may indeed repeat itself. The darkness is coming, my little ponies. How'd y'all get that there shot of the warden on that there hill? Both the bloody barrel guy or whatever, and the other warden creep, Jack asked. I didn't see any of your kind around there. Why did you have some kind of camera thingy there or something? I find the simplest explanations to be most forthcoming. Magic. Killjoy smiled broadly. To tell the truth, there were many moments in those memories where I didn't see you. The grand entryway, for example, Rosie pointed. I know we saw your younger self in the council chambers, but... Magic, Gilderoy shrugged. Oh please, Reggie huffed. That is a simply terrible explanation. How can you expect us to believe that? I believe it, Twilight nodded quickly. With the right application of energy, magic can do just about anything imaginable. Like raise the sun? It's not unfathomable for him to alter his memories based on records he may have read, or even inspired with his own imagination. Well put, Miss Sparkle. Your understanding of magic is commendable. Gilderoy smirked. Come on now, every pony. Haven't any of you heard the old Gryphon saying, it's magic, and I'm not required to disclose? Rainbow Dash suddenly let out a yawn. Yeah, that was all well and good, but did you have to waste so much of our time? We were in there for hours listening to all that. He laughed. Don't you see, Miss Dash? This is the knowledge that I'd hoped to one day spread to others. To make once went wrong, right? I suppose I can never hope that my kind will ever come back into the fold, but I know for a fact that there is something horrible happening up there. And I know not of what it is, or how to stop it. I can only hope that any Gryphon, any pony, that I may share this knowledge with may be able to help. Forgive me, I'm still getting used to referring to a different creature. It is quite all right, my good Mr. Gilderoy. Rarity smiled. Don't fret so much about the mix-up. We don't mind. So even now I understand this, right? Y'all want to help with saving the world from this here darkness or whatever. Applejack blinked. No offense, Mr. Gilderoy, but we already got a world we need to save. Beg pardon? Gilderoy blinked. It's a long story. Really, really long story, Twilight hesitated. I mean, even though it's all happening right now, I still have a hard time believing it's real. I doubt it's as long as his was, Rainbow complained. I almost fell asleep through all that history junk. Ugh, I hate history. Gilderoy laughed. My dear Miss Dash, you are in a hurry, aren't you? But remember what my riddle says. You mustn't worry. You mustn't fear. The magic of the type I cast upon you is quite extraordinary indeed. Certainly better than any history lesson your kind would bother with. Did I not advise you all to keep your eye on the clock? He pointed at it. 22 minutes after noon. Why didn't that blinked? Applejack blinked in shock. How did you... Magic, of course. Gilderoy beamed proudly. Oh, how I love being able to demonstrate my studies to others again. It's been dreadfully dull down here the past several centuries, you understand? Well, now if your magic is so great and all, can't you all just, teleport us to where we need to go? Applejack asked. That sure would take a load off our shoulders, I'll tell you that. Teleportation magic doesn't work that way, I'm afraid, Gilderoy admitted. I can only teleport you to somewhere I've physically been or seen with their own eyes. And not through a vision or some of the tales of others. I've never left Aeropolis since I was born, and I was born much after our society moved to the northern continent. I'm sorry. The furthest I could send you, perhaps someplace else within the Goldridge Pass, but that would most certainly delay you rather than help. Shoot, nice idea though, AJ, Rainbow said as she patted the Earth Pony's shoulder. Man, magic sure has a lot of rules, doesn't it? Who's saying this? Twat. It truly is all remarkable stuff. I regret being unable to stick around to study with a bit myself. I've always been a huge magic buff. Twilight smiled, but Rainbow Dash has a point. Our story is a little complicated. A complicated tale is no obstacle for one like myself. I've seen stories woven of stuff none of you could ever imagine. So I doubt anything would happen to you six would startle me. Gilderoy laughed. But if you insist, let's keep it simple then, shall we? When did this tale of yours start? Let's see, Twilight thought aloud. Roughly 7 days, I'd estimate. Maybe 8? Yeah, that's 1 week down, Rainbow noted. According to TikTok, we've only got 2 weeks to go, if we're lucky. If this whole journey is going to take as long as she says it is, we're running short. We really need to get going as quickly as we can. Twilight sighed. I actually sort of wish TikTok were here. She'd be able to explain it better than I would. I don't know how accurately we can relate it to you. We'll just see about that, Gilderoy smirked. He brandished his wand and waved it around over their heads, covering them with a bright green glow and causing them to suddenly freeze as the powerful sensation rushed through their minds, as if another mind was inside of them. It kind of tickled, as the sensation washed through their memories. They didn't particularly like reliving some of them, no matter how briefly, but the tingling in their heads was soothing and put them at ease. Gilderoy's eyes closed in focus as he attempted to watch their memories all at once. Gilderoy's expression changed to curiosity as he saw them entering Everfree Forest in their own world, a place so bright and colourful and lush and so unlike his own world that it inspired within him a sense of wanting awe, reminding him of the fields of green that once surrounded Aeropolis, but were now barren and buried under mountains of golden rock. He recognised the portal they entered, and his eyes widened as he saw Twilight attempt to seal it, as he knew the exact reason it had happened. Relief as they safely arrived in his own world and made friends with Flighthoof, and later Lockwood, two ponies he could see were genuinely decent despite the circumstances, as citizens of a city where chaos and evil were rarely punished, and oft-times rewarded. Rare breeds indeed, at least as far as Pandemonium was concerned. It was also his first chance to see how the city had grown and prospered since his time, and he viewed it with as much wonder and curiosity as they had. Technomagic marvels the likes of which his kind had never achieved. No wonder that no doubt helped along by generations of intrepid pony scholars and engineers and mages to build the greatest city on the planet. Whimsy as they met TikTok for the first time, despite the most unfortunate circumstances around her meeting them, and the sorry state she was in. It had been centuries since he'd truly seen a chronomancer. They all felt a flicker of enjoyment from Gilderoy when her attitude came to the forefront. He was quite familiar with chronomancers and their mannerisms and sociabilities, and it amused him greatly to see that despite her attitude being so abrupt, as he'd predicted it would. She was exactly as he expected her to be, so focused on her work and so dedicated to her ideals that to him it was almost inspiring. Worry when their apartment came crashing down on them, only barely stopped by Twilight's quick thinking. Astonishment as he witnessed her incredible magic again. Worry as they had to fight their way through the gate. Astonishment again as Twilight, with help from Rarity and TikTok, tore the 100-ton gate open like it was tissue paper. Worry as they fell into Red Blade Mountain's volcanoes. More astonishment as Twilight's magic again, with the help of Rarity and TikTok, resisted the heat of molten magma and the astounding force of a volcanic explosion. Worry as they landed in the hunting grounds of the Gargantuans for the first time, where Fluttershy was infected. Astonishment again as Twilight defended her friends with her magic against a full-grown adult Gargantuan, with enough power in its claws to crush a large house. Washing back into relief as they were rescued by Starlight Shadow's gang, who intrigued him greatly. Then to calm as they met Pewter, and were graciously assisted by him at TikTok's behest. Some curiosity as he watched the conversations between the ponies, but he was certain that perhaps the stress they had gone through over the past day was fogging their thoughts. Something just seemed off in the thought of Applejack and Rarity. The conversations were mostly the same, and given their distinct manners of speech, he could attribute the inexactness to that. The location seemed different, no matter the thoughts. The thoughts were passing too quickly to dwell on anyway, and neither Rarity nor Applejack had sensed his confusion. Then suddenly becoming distressed as Starlight's gang dropped all form of niceties and engaged in battle with them. The incredible power and finesse of grayscale force with the control over what seemed to be a form of relativism. The intense and insurmountable anger of Havocwing and her mastery of pyromancy. The horrors of Red Velvet making Pinkie Pie shrink back in fear and cling desperately to Rainbow Dash as she relived the moments of what the other pink Earth Pony's terrible hemomancy and other strange yet familiar powers were capable of. The mysterious powers that fueled Insipid, possibly an odd inversion of benefaction. And finally, the awesome magical energies wielded by Starlight Shadow, and the source that drove it, as conferred by TikTok's extreme measures, void magic, contained and controlled as a weapon. Surely it must be impossible, but there it was, as clear as day. Then finally, understanding as they found their way here, and faced the trials that guarded his sanctuary. Solving a simple timed puzzle had proven most easy, until an overeager Rainbow Dash had tried to shortcut it, though Gilderoy's smile made it apparent that it was still a possible solution. Solving a mixing and matching puzzle was not a problem, until distractions caused them to miss too many guesses and forced them to quite literally mix and match mains. Solving another puzzle to test their interconnectivity and being mostly successful, but Gilderoy was concerned that he had met a blank spot somewhere in that area and couldn't see exactly what happened, almost as if they'd forgotten the event completely. At last his eyes opened, and he frowned down at Twilight with the deepest concern he'd worn yet. "A most curious tale yours is, all of you. Elements of harmony, and most concerning." "Whoa," Twilight blinked. What just happened? What kind of spell was that?" "A very basic memory reflection spell," Gilderoy explained. "It's similar to the one I was channeling earlier to show you events from the past. Only that one was directed towards me and allowed you all to see my memories. Or more specifically, how precisely they were relayed to me from those present or my own imagination. I should so precisely put it, Miss Sparkle. At the most elementary levels, that spell can see back for hours or days or even weeks. At advanced levels, it can allow visions of, well, millennia past." Gilderoy hummed in thought. "I believe now that perhaps fate has conspired to bring us together, my little ponies, in the most odd turn of events that I doubt even our elders could have predicted, were they still alive. It would seem that your Chronomancer friend is TikTok. She has even not had the time or inclination to take into account that your presence in this world isn't just affecting your own, it's affecting ours too. Though, to her credit, I'll believe the former is most likely, due to your haste across the wastelands." Wait, you're saying that we're not just harming our own world by being here, but yours too? Twilight's ever concern. How so? Well, first of all, I'm merely making the assumption that our world operates in a similar manner to your own. Assuming it does, it would work like this, similar to how your absence from one world is lowering the powers of light through the increasing power of the Discord fellow. Your presence in another should be increasing it. And as that silver-tongued manipulator so eloquently put it, those many years back, that sort of imbalance has just as much of a negative impact upon the world as too much darkness would have. I can guess that your sudden arrival is what triggered the change in the balance, and I detected them almost a week ago. But I am most confused as to how it suddenly reversed itself. Even more so now that it is starting to become imbalanced in the wrong direction, back along the path of darkness. Very odd indeed. So I suspect that if you all manage to make it back home, that might well fix things back to the way they ought to be. So basically what you're telling us is, if we get to home as quickly as possible, we'll save both worlds? Rarity asked. Well, that certainly puts my mind at ease. The way you were sounding there, Mr. Gilderoy, I was worried we'd have to go on some other quest to save it all. That is my theory for now, at least. Gilderoy nodded. I'll admit I wish I had more time to work this out, but I can understand your hurry now, Miss Dash. But fear not, I shan't keep you much longer. Twilight nodded. So then, I suppose you'd be willing to help us get home faster? Yeah, what's the hold-up? Rainbow blurted, ignoring looks from Rarity and Twilight again. If hurrying us on our way is going to save everything and put it all back to normal, then let's get on with it. Unfortunately, my dears, I doubt I can do much to help you directly. Gilderoy frowned with a sigh. Apart from pointing you on your way, of course. I have a little in the way of methods to help those hasten your travels. But I don't think getting home quickly is a problem for you anymore. Not if those other mares helped you cut your time as much as they did. The coast is another few days ahead of you, assuming your travel is the quickest route possible. If this time limit you've had imposed on you is accurate, and I have the utmost faith in both those chronomancers' estimates, there is no doubt in my mind that you'll be able to meet it. Well, that's marvellous news, Rarity smiled. I'm glad that we have such a fine creature to set our minds at ease. I suppose this means we can relax a little en route. Just a tiny bit, please? Well, if making all the way on time ain't no problem, and the only problem we do have is Mary showing up, Applejack stated firmly. I don't suppose y'all got any assurance there, Mr. Gilderoy. It sure would make us all rest easier knowing them mares ain't gonna show up and give us no trouble. Ah, those six, Gilderoy nodded in agreement. From what I've seen, their capabilities are quite powerful ponies. They have fully harnessed the magical powers within them in ways that rather impress me. But you needn't fear them quite so much, my dears. There's nothing more than a delay so long as you stay focused on your goal. A delay? That's it? A delay? You're joking, right? These guys have fucking superpowers! Rainbow blurted. I know I'm confident. I know I'm confident that I can handle that nut havoc ring by myself next time. And sure, maybe we're all confident that we can do a better job next time we come against them, but Twilight completed with a sigh, we're assuming they're still willing to handicap themselves and not use lethal force. The Velvet Mare certainly seems willing to go that far, and while I have doubts that they all share that feeling, I'm not so sure anymore. Not after seeing what every pony else got to see. The powers we've all witnessed are, at least according to Starlight Shadow, not adequate in proving their worth. She claims that we haven't even scratched the surface, that they were just holding back. If that's the case, then perhaps it would be best if that's the case, then perhaps it would be in your best interest if you yourselves don't hold back any longer, Gilderoy said firmly. He was met with somewhat blank looks from every pony. I don't follow, Twilight blinked. I thought we gave it our all. Was any pony holding back? She asked her friends. They all shook their heads. You don't follow? Gilderoy raised an eyebrow. What's there not to follow? You said that you were worried about not holding back, but perhaps you shouldn't hold back either. I can tell when a creature is not using what they are capable of. There is no sense in handicapping yourselves in the face of danger. We're not arguing that. We're pointing out that they're stronger than us, Rainbow said flatly. I mean, sure, I was handicapped pretty bad, and I think having me at full strength will be enough to handle the level that they were fighting at before, but Twilight's right. What if they're willing to put in more effort? Stronger than you? Ha! Oh, my little ponies. Gilderoy chuckled. You don't realize just how powerful you really are. I can sense the immense magic that flows from you. All of you. I haven't felt this much incredible magic from a living creature in a very long time indeed. I doubt that you're stronger than them in turn. However, but perhaps equals. I cannot be sure without them present to compare to directly. That's rich. That's rich. You're all good with jokes there, Mr. Gilderoy. We ain't got magic, Applejack scoffed. That's for unicorns and stuff, not the likes of us earth ponies and Pegasi. Ain't that right, Dash? Well, I guess that some of the things Pegasi can do might count as magic, Rainbow Dash shrugged. But I don't see how fiddling with clouds is the same kind of magic that he's talking about. I know if I was able to do all that fancy kinds of stuff like Twilight can, I sure as heck wouldn't be worried about anything getting the jump on me. I mean, nothing can get the jump on me anyway, but if I could cast spells and stuff like that, like Twilight, I bet I'd be able to stand up to dopey old Discord almost by myself. Rainbow proudly pounded their chest. No offense, Twi, I'm just awesome is all. How wrong you are, dear Miss Applejack. Gilderoy grinned with a shake of his head. You can stop joking around now yourself. Really, you aren't fooling any Gryphon. Any pony. I still don't follow, Twilight raised an eyebrow. You're saying that all of us have magic? Not just me and Rarity? And I've lost my way. Yeah. Real magic, not just what Rainbow had said. I don't buy it, Applejack crossed her forelimbs. Not one bit. Yes, that does seem most unbelievable, Rarity pointed out. Twilight and I possess magic, certainly, but the others? Certainly poor Fluttershy doesn't have any magic, do you, dear? Oh, well, that's right, Fluttershy peeped. All I have are these feathers. I don't have a horn hidden anywhere. Not that I know of, anyway. Maybe the stare counts. Well, that seems to me like it's part of your way with animals, Twilight hummed. This all sounds awfully familiar to me. I know I've read something about this kind of stuff before. No, really, Mr. Gilderoy, y'all just kidding, right? Applejack laughed. You know, 'cause if y'all are, it ain't funny no more. Quit pulling our legs. You all are serious, Gilderoy blinked. You really don't know? Know what? Twilight asked incredulously. Gilderoy scratched his head. This is most odd indeed. You really know nothing about pony magic? I know about unicorn magic, Twilight rolled her eyes, but you're making it sound as if we're talking about something else entirely. What, you mean... What? You mean like there's magic other than what we unicorns can use? Rarity raised an eyebrow. Well, seeing you as you all seem to be serious about this, allow me to enlighten you. First, you must understand my work here. For the past 300 years I have been in this chamber, researching the fundamentals of all different forms of magic there are in the universe. Every spell, every school, every sub-school, everything. I've discovered the truth of things that have baffled the greatest scholars of my kind for generations, categorized spells that have gone undocumented for millennia, and redefined some of the most basic laws of magic, as I discovered new ways they worked under extraordinary conditions, he explained. Twilight hummed. In other words, you're a egghead? Rainbow scoffed. Scholar, Twilight corrected with a hiss. Really, Rainbow, just let him explain. This is all very interesting. For you, maybe, Rainbow groaned. Sorry if I'm sounding impatient or whatever. I just want to hear the good stuff, you know? I don't want to hear all this theory or whatever. I want to get to the point. This is quite alright, Miss Dash. Gilderoy laughed. I've been told by my colleagues that I am nothing short of the greatest windbagger to have ever served as lawkeeper, and I take no offence to it. At any rate, in my discoveries, I learned that you ponies are quite magnificent creatures indeed, far greater in potential than any Gryphon could have ever hoped to achieve without the use of our wands. Granted, our kind could fly and manipulate weather much as your Pegasi can, but our ancestors certainly felt that we were destined for more than that. I wish that my kind had the natural magic that you all possess. Perhaps then we would have never invented those dreadful techno-magic monstrosities. Loath as I am to harbour the things that still keep me alive to this day. You see, all ponies have magic within their bodies, and it manifests through them in different ways, most fundamentally depending on what race the ponies are. The races of ponies each have their own general manifestations of magic, shared between all ponies of that race. It's a very elementary characteristic, beyond just their physical properties. Now, when you say all ponies, Pinky asked Burley, do you mean all ponies, right? Well, of course, Gilderoy laughed. Every single pony out there contains at least a little magic within them. Some more than others, to be sure. And that's the heart of the matter with you six. If I may be so blunt, every single pony, yourself included, dear Miss Pye, has magic. Wow, Pinky gasped. Well, what kind of magic? He was getting to that, weren't you, Mr. Gilderoy? Twilight nodded, eager to continue. Indeed I was. Unicorns, of course, are most able to easily tap into their magic, as they're the only pony race equipped with horns, which, I remind you all, contain very unique nerves to conduct magic naturally, while our world's other horned races have long gone extinct, even before my birth. Further back even than our kinds have discovered magic. I suspect that similar creatures may have appeared in your world, bison, rams, elk, and the like. Oh yes, all of those creatures have their own kingdoms in our world. Twilight agreed. Why, my final paper for advanced world cultures was on bisons to the north beyond Equestria's borders. You see, the bisons of our world live in the ice and snow because, ice and snow, and so my theory is that they evolved their thick fur because... Twilight! Rainbow interrupted. Right, sorry. Twilight blushed. Go on, Mr. Gilderoy, I apologise for... No worries, dear Miss Sparkle. Anyway, all unicorns are capable of using any type of magic there is, but only should they put their mind to it, and should they have their magical fortitude, but most unicorns don't have that kind of resolve. I am very sad to say. So most of the time I'll only see them use the most basic magic things, like telekinesis, through unicorns, though unicorns are very easily able to manifest magic in the field covered by their special talent, of course, should their talent be related to a school of magic. Twilight nodded in agreement. That's all very common knowledge amongst pony scholars back at home. I didn't expect a non-pony to have such interest or knowledge in the subject, though. Well, this does explain why Miss TikTok is able to use such a variety of magical spells compared to me. Oh, that's Rarity. Rarity hummed. She just has the determination to do it, that's all. I never much had the focus to learn things like combat spells. This barrier things are not my forte at all. Most unladylike. Going around grunting and shouting like that, and that gets us sweaty. But don't you see, Rarity? Pinky said with a little brightness returning to her voice. That means that, if you put your mind to it, you could do anything TikTok can do, and she's not afraid of anything. So that means you don't need to worry about anything either, right? Well, I wouldn't go that far, dear, Rarity laughed. I'm not quite as aggressive as she is, but I will think about trying out some new tricks with this information. simply the application of some of those spells in my fashion line. Gilderoy continued. Pegasi are able to fly naturally, via their wings of course, which are very much unlike the wings of birds or griffins or other winged creatures, insofar as they are stronger and more flexible. Even they can bend much like any claw can. They are capable of gripping things even supporting the weight of the Pegasi to which they were attached. He demonstrated this by clenching and unclenching his good claw. While unicorns are capable of flying too, that kind of spell requires a great deal of concentration, and is usually not worth the trouble. Albeit I've studied enough to know that for young foals, are they called, your unicorn foals are known for being able to use incredibly advanced magic effortlessly, because their imaginations are that much greater, and they know nothing of limitations. Once a unicorn begins to reach ages of maturity, they begin to learn about the limits of magic, and through no fault of their own, often lose that precious spark. To be young again. He nervously coughed into his metal fist again, pounding it on his chest until the red light turned back to green. But I digress. Though I have researched enough magic to know that unicorns can create wings for themselves, temporarily. Even those are flimsy and not at all up to snuff with the real thing, no matter how lovely they may look. But even with wings or flight, unicorns can't do other amazing things Pegasi can. They cannot manipulate weather, and their speed is very limited, which also prevents them from performing the second unique Pegasus property. The second one? Rainbow blinked. I know about weather and junk, but there's something else? Yes, it's something I find incredibly fascinating, much more so than anything unicorns are capable of. Though that may be my bias as a fellow winged creature. Gilderoy laughed. While the phenomenon has not yet been given an officially documented name, there have been many scholars, even amongst our own kind, I am sure, that have researched it. My own theory on the matter calls it Pegasus Magical Velocity, or PMV for short. Very simple to understand, not filled with all the rubbish I've seen other theories on the subject try to ramrod in an attempt to meet some lofty word count goal of all the preposterous things. Have you ever noticed how, when a particularly talented Pegasus flies extremely fast, they leave a trail of stuff behind them, usually of some relation to their special talent or some other physical qualities? Yeah, now that you mention it, Rainbow nodded. I know when I'm moving fast enough, you can see a rainbow trail for miles. Yeah, and it's super duper great, Pinky said with a wide smile. I didn't know that was magic, like real magic. Oh dash it, that's totally neato. Rainbow brightened a little, Pinky getting so involved with the discussion. Yeah, you're right, Pinks. Hey, remember when I did the Sonic Rainbow back in Cloudsdale, guys? That rainbow stayed above Wonderbolt Stadium for hours. More than any real rainbow would have. Maybe there's something to all this. Please, don't remind me, Rarity shrugged. I still have the most terrible nightmares about that day. Oh, I don't think I could ever thank you enough for being who you are, dear Rainbow Dash. Just your friendly neighborhood Rainbow Dash being totally awesome, right, Pinks? Rainbow boasted. Right. Pinky nodded enthusiastically. It's nice to see Pinky's going back to normal. Don't the Wonderbolts do some... Wait, is this... Who's that? Twilight. Don't the Wonderbolts do something similar to that in their air shows? I can recall something like that when they attended one of their royal performances during my school days, Twilight asked. Rainbow hastily agreed. Yeah, they all tend to use the same formation when flying together. So it always appears as lightning storms and stuff. But I know some of them have special trails of their own that they bring out for solo performances. She began mentally and physically listing off the entire Wonderbolt's roster one by one. Let's see, Spitfire leads flame trails, Jetset leads a whirlwind, Coldfront leads snowflakes, and Thundercloud leads a trail of lightning. Rainbow, Twilight interrupted. Rainbow blushed, realizing she'd been gushing. Right, and so on. You get the idea. It's all cool. Huh. And that Havoc Ring creep did it too. She kind of left a trail of fire back in the cave. I thought it was just her control over fire in general, but, well, anyways, that's Pegasus magic?
In a manner of speaking, yes. Only the best flies are capable of leaving truly impressive trails, and only the best of the best can use their inner magic to control it. Gilderoy nodded. Earth ponies are of course connected to the earth itself, and all the fruit it bears. This connection makes them more physically fit and able-bodied, as their kind tended to be regulated to hard labour in ancient times, so they couldn't fly like Pegasi or use magic the same as unicorns. However, this connection doesn't just make them more robust, it also gives them a powerful connection with nature, both flora and fauna, of almost all kinds. Well, shucks, if that ain't true, I'll eat my hat. Applejack whistled. I've always been tougher and stronger than most of my friends. Other friends, even back when I was a little filly. Back before I ever started working on the farm proper like. And of course y'all know there ain't no better farmer in all Equestria than yours truly. But you're all saying that's magic though? This is a bit far-fetched if y'all don't mind me saying. Oh, it's very much real magic, that is. That it is. Gilderoy nodded. Golly, that's something alright. Something? Applejack, that's awesome! Pinky happily interjected. This means that you're like super strong and stuff. Ain't that pony ever gonna give you any trouble? Well, my name isn't Pinkie Pie. Now suppose that isn't true. Now suppose that is true, ain't it? Applejack smiled. Gilderoy added, You may not know or realise it, but it's very much there and a part of your lives as much as your special talents are. They are also too heavily connected. Twilight nodded hesitantly. I remember reading about something like this. I remember reading about something like this. It's advanced magical theory. It was put forth originally over 1,000 years ago, back before Nightmare Moon first came to power. Heck, I think it's the Hearthwarming Eve origin story makes mention of it. Even if not by name or anything like that. Why, even Starswell the Bearded himself did some research into it, but nothing came out of the theory other than it was just a theory. Now, I will admit, I'd always figured it had some merit to it, but what you may not realise is that different ponies have different ways of manifesting this magic. Generally, of course, those very basic effects I mentioned are very clear in any pony of any particular race, and all ponies have a special talent that is represented by those unique markings that you bear upon your flanks. Cutie marks, I believe your kind calls them. And this talent usually is how they manifest that magic as its most potent level. A unicorn with a talent for finding things, for example, has a stronger tie to the magics of spectromancy. An earth pony who tends to gardening and has a stronger tie to biomancy, and so on, and so on. All ponies have this kind of capability, and some have much strong magic within them that they can tap into multiple sources, even the sources of the other races of ponies, if they put their minds to it. Pinky bounced excitedly, barely able to contain a joyful curiosity. So, we do have magic? For really? Didn't you hear the guy, Pinky? Applejack smiled. I mean, I ain't never seen y'all do much good with animals and plants or nothing, and y'all certainly ain't the most rough and tumble pony I ever seen. But I suppose working with all them ingredients in your bacon has got something to do with your earth pony magic. Oh, I know all that, Pinky said quickly. I mean, we have real magic, though? The same as those others do? That's where you're going with this, alright? All of this, right, Mr. Gilderoy? That those 6 McMeena Pants mares aren't going to mess with us anymore, right? Huh? The same as those 6 mares do, yes, Gilderoy nodded. Just in different aspects, of course. Some amongst them have great powers that even I am surprised to see them capable of. But as I said, that kind of magic resides in all ponies. With the resolve and drive to tap into it, they have merely put in the effort to utilize the natural magics that reside deep inside them. And I do not doubt that you all should have the resolve to do as well. I am just a little surprised you are all just learning this now. Have none of you ever thought about what made your special talent so special? I think y'all might be mistaken. Applejack shook her head. We ain't got the same types of powers they all do. I grant that you're all right about the other stuff. About us being magic and why not just by being who we are. I can't make no fireballs and throw them around like a madman. Or suck the life right out of you. Or shoot no fancy laser beams. I'm just a simple earth pony. Ain't none of that kind of mumbo jumbo here. Yeah, you're not actually telling us we can do that kind of stuff, right? Remember, Dash raised an eyebrow. I mean, that seems like pretty far cry from being able to fiddle around with clouds, which I mean, the Pegasus can do too. On the contrary, that is exactly what I'm saying. Gilderoy shook his head. You simply just don't realize what you are capable of, which I find most unfortunate. A little demonstration and understanding goes a long way, and if understanding your inner selves will grant that determination to you, then perhaps I can lend a claw after all. I think a little more of my magic may prove of assistance here. He brandished his wand again and pointed it first at... Whoa, do me first, please, please, Pinky pleaded, waving her hoof around in the air. I've got to know, I just gotta! This means everything to me about, well, everything! I gotta know, please! Whoa there, Pink, settle down for a sec. What are you babbling on about? Rainbow raised an eyebrow, trying to calm the suddenly overexcited Earth Brony, which was proving extraordinarily difficult. Don't you get it, Dashy? Pinky said eagerly, her hair poofing out with great energy. If I have real magic, then that means you have real magic, just like it. You all have magic. If you all have cool powers and stuff, then just show them. Just show them already, Mr. Gilderoy. Please. I only wish I still had such eagerness and energy as you do, my dear. Gilderoy laughed, tapping her gently on the head and closing his eyes. Let's see. Miss Pye, I do believe you already know the extent of your connection to the magic of verissimulation. A little proof is all you need, I take it. Pinkie Pie happily nodded. Yep, I sure do. Oh boy, this is so exciting. I can't believe that all this time it was magic that made all my super fun stuff possible. I can't believe it. Dashy, me, magic, hee hee. She giggled and bounced and very suddenly popped up into the air in a furious sparkle of lights and colours that sounds like some sort of pony firework, causing all of her friends to stand back and gape in awe. As Pinky landed, she began excitedly hopping around in place, sending colourful sparks flying about wherever her hooves landed. And that means I've got nothing to worry about, and you're all just going to be just fine, because you all have powers of your own too. That creepy velvet ain't going to hurt a hair on your heads when you show what you've got. Pinky then gave a happy squeal and launched off around the room in another brilliant fireworks display. Verissa, what? Rainbow blinked as she watched Pinky scream around the room, creating a beautiful multicoloured explosion everywhere she went. Pinky giggled loudly, excitedly, and began trying to spell the word out in the air, looping about and tracing rainbow-coloured magical sparks in her wake. Verisha manga blinga ding dong. Very hard word to say. Verissimulation, Gilderoy laughed. It is a very unique form of magic, quite unlike any other, capable of performing some of the most incredible feats imaginable. It's one of the few schools of magic that I actually do not know much about, as it is not easy to tap into or analyse. But I do know that it is astounding to watch in action. It truly is one of the greatest forms of magic in existence, as far as schools and super schools and such are concerned. However, despite the amazing wonders verissimulation is capable of, it does have its own limits. I'm not completely certain, but I suspect that her particular form of verissimulation is tied to her element of laughter, and so it is likely limited to things that bring herself or others joy and laughter. I'd go as far as saying that Miss Pye here is possibly the greatest potential as a defence against the darkness, from what I could tell from the short memories of you all. Don't tell me none of you noticed. Haven't you ever wondered how she's able to do some of the incredible feats she is capable of? I don't think that for a moment any of her wonders I've seen from her memories are the extent of of what she's capable of all of her life.
Well, that's just Pinkie Pie being Pinkie Pie, Twilight nervously chuckled. It's all very weird, but there can't be any magic to her. She's just special. Gilderoy smiled in understanding. Very special indeed, if I may be so bold. Yup. Pinkie suddenly stood tall and proud, and glowed a radiant pink. In brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware the power of Pinkie's light. She laughed, causing the pink light to dim. Come on, Twilight, you've all seen it for yourselves. I mean, where was I keeping that Pinkie Pinata? Pinata Pie? Oh, I forget it. That Pinkie Pinata Pie. Where was I keeping it the whole time, huh? In a saddlebag in my mane? Huh? Not a chance, sister. Chocolate is so not funny to try and clean out her hair. So when I keep it? Simple. Magic. Both she and Gilderoy said in unison, making Pinkie giggle uncontrollably, sending sputtering sparks of light spitting out from the room in wide circles as if they were dancing. You're kidding, Twilight said flatly. No, I'm as serious as I can be. Pinkie nodded sagely. I simply thought to myself, oh no, I know this crazy Mary's going to get me. And I thought, hey, I wonder how I can stop this from happening. And an idea, and then I cast Summon Body Double Level 10. Roll natural 20s. Critical cast. Summon Body Double... Right, Twilight rolled her eyes. Pinkie, there's no such thing as... Gilderoy interrupted quickly. Don't be too hasty to judge it. In my studies, I have found that verisimilation magic is a very finicky school of magic. I found that it is capable of incredible things that I could not believe. But the more I doubted what I was seeing, the less likely it was to take hold. My theory is that verisimilation magic follows a very acute rule of perception. In plain terms, seeing is believing, and you should just leave it at that. You're allowed to be surprised. You're allowed to be stunned, but don't ever tell her that what she does is impossible. You can't accept that what Pinkie does is beyond your grasp. Then perhaps it is best that you follow a very simple mantra. It's just magic, and I should just really just relax. Yeah, if I can believe it, I can achieve it. Pinkie happily declared. Nothing to it, just gotta do it. Absolutely resolutely. Ha! My good Miss Pie, you are a skilled rhymer, aren't you? Gilderoy chuckled. And a thrill climber, old-timer! Pinkie withered her eyebrows. I'll make them think before they mess with the pink. Pie! Shoot, I messed that one up again. So wait! Rainbow hastily interrupted. She can do, anything she wants? Anything at all? Let me get this straight, because if I'm right, then what you're telling us is, with this power of hers, she could take us home, right now? Pinkie, that's fantastic. Go on, open up a portal or something. Pinkie frowned. I can't. Rainbow stared, slack-jawed and bewildered. What do you mean you can't? You just said you... but this is the second rule. It also can't bend the fundamental law of reality and space-time, just like any other kind of magic. Sadly for your little friend here, the chronomancers of old long ago learned it was quite impossible for a pony to travel from one world to another without assistance of the void magic, in great quantities, and declared it a law of multiverse. Pinkie cannot simply break that law, because doing so would be, catastrophic. Other laws of physics and chemistry are fair game. However, she can do anything that regular magic can do, such as create matter from nothing, but she cannot simply take you home. I do regret in this case. Sorry, Dashi, Pinkie shrugged. I already tried that way back in Chapter 1. As soon as we landed in that junk pile. I mean, I wanted to go back on that magical slide ride. Remember? When it didn't work, I figured it was just meant to be, and we were struck here without any fun roller coaster slides. Besides, where would the fun been if we were done before Chapter 2 even started, huh? Who'd want to read that?
Chapter what now? Applejack blinked. Read what, darling? Rarity raised an eyebrow. Don't ask. Pinky hurriedly hushed. You guys aren't supposed to know I'm already breaking... You guys aren't supposed to know, and I'm already breaking too many rules just talking about it. Just leave it at that, Just leave it at that. I have to follow some guidelines to use my magic. And that one of the rules says I couldn't just bring us all back home right away. Blame TikTok if you want, I guess. That is what happens when we run into these situations usually, right? Rainbow smiled. It's okay, Pinks. I'll remember to hit TikTok and say her bosses or whatever are stupid. I'm just glad to see you're enjoying yourself again. Finding out you have a magical power is super cool. I can't wait to see what the kinds of stuff you can pull off. Wait, you said Pinky already knew her power? Twilight asked. Is that true, Pinky? Pinky nervously shuffled. Well, yeah, I've been able to do anything I wanted even when we were back home. I mean, didn't you guys notice? Well, of course we noticed, but that was always just Pinky being Pinky, right? Twilight shook her head. Great, and now you're telling me I can't question it either. It's like Pinky Sense all over again, only cranked up to the next level. Let me guess, that's for assimilation too? Well, obviously not. I mean, when I first showed that off, we were all like, Gas, Pinky, you can't predict the future. And I was all like, yeah, I can. And then you were all like, nah, and then Yes, and then a frog fell on my face, I remember, Twilight groaned. Right, Pinky nodded. So Pinky Sense might just be me being me, or something, I don't really know. Sorry, Everpony. Sorry for what? That's cool, you have superpowers, Pinks, Rainbow joyfully declared. Why the hell would we be mad? Pinky shuffled her hooves. Well, I mean, I figured that since you all didn't have the superpowers, then if I went around with one... Come on, Pinks. Ain't no pony ever gonna be mad at you for that. You had to hide your power like a real superhero. Rainbow chuckled, patting Pinky on the back. Besides, you heard the guy. We all have powers too, right? So lay it on us, Mr. Gilderoy, she demanded enthusiastically. What about the rest of us, huh? What kind of stuff can we do? I bet mine has something to do with being super fast. I mean, it's obvious, right? Fastest Pegasus alive, you know. I'm glad to see you're all so eager to learn... Hang on. Just readjusting myself. I was getting rather warm in that current position. I'm glad to see you're all so eager to learn more about yourselves. Gilderoy smiled. I'm still perplexed that Miss Pine knew so much about her own abilities, though. Well, there must be something that lets me do, you know, what I'm doing now, Pinky laughed, sending multicoloured sparks sputtering out her mouth. I suppose that is adequate enough for me. Carrying on, then. Gilderoy smirked as he tapped his wand on Rainbow's head. Ah, Miss Dash. It would seem you do not quite fully understand your own power just yet. While your guess was certainly a valid one, I can see much more of it. Oh, so it has nothing to do with my speed? Rainbow asked, sounding disappointed. That's... Wow, I didn't see that coming. You sure it has nothing to do with my speed? You know, because I'm fast. On the contrary, your speed is what makes your incredible power possible in the first place. It has everything to do with your speed. But not just simply because you can fly faster than any pony else, Gilderoy explained. Remember that I said all Pegasi have the ability to manipulate the weather, correct? And that particularly fast and capable flyers can generate trails of magic and resonate typically with some sort of weather or elemental effect? Well, normally a single Pegasus has little hope of manifesting anything particularly potent without outside influence, either from a unicorn performing enhanced spells or from the assistance of additional Pegasi. You, however, have a very deep connection to the magics of meteomancy. Pinkie Pie gave a loud gasp. Oh my Celestia, Dash, you can summon meteors! That's a late game spell! Oh wow, that's fucking awesome! Rainbow said eagerly. Meteomancy deals with weather control, Rainbow. Oh no, that's Twilight. Twilight pointed out, causing both Pinkie and Rainbow to droop considerably. Oh, well, that's okay with
Oh, well, okay, that's cool too, I guess. Rainbow tapped a hoof to her chin. I'm good with weather magic, huh? Well, I did make Weather Patrol Captain in Ponyville fresh out of flight school. That's pretty rare. Good, Dashy, you're the best, Pinky proudly boasted. No pony back home can do the stuff you can with the weather. Clearing the sky in 10 seconds flat every single time. And there was that time with the Paris Prize where you made the whirlwind. Heck, you even did that when we first met, Twilight proudly smiled. This all seemed pretty incredible to me. Yes, and if you recall the last winter wrap-up, Rarity pointed, you were at the head of the weather formation that cleared the snow from all of Ponyville. Surely that had something to do with the natural talent with weather, Yeah, whenever I need an emergency rain shower on some crops, you're always able to take care of it by yourself. Applejack added, Back before y'all come to Ponyville. I remember having to wait days to get that kind of stuff taken care of. Because they had to send multiple weather pigs out to do it. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there, guys. Because it's getting on, and I'll start the next chapter soon. And also the phone's going. So with that, I bid you farewell. Keep on spreading the magic of friendship, and I'll see you next time.